Welcome back to the Lakeside Productions YouTube channel. In this series, I'm repairing a 1940 40-foot Seaplane tender and converting it back into a liveaboard, which it was converted to after World War II. The boat is constructed of double diagonal mahogany hull planking and oak ribs. I started back by removing the last of the pine quadrant on the port side. This was to seal the cabin plywood edge where it meets the deck. I'm doing away with it as I will be fibreglassing the deck shortly. I had secured it by using Sikaflex and stainless steel screws, so a combination of the multi-tool and chisel was needed to pry it up, as well as unscrewing the actual stainless steel screws. Then I moved on to the wheelhouse cabin roof. I fibreglassed it last summer and only got it partially painted with the Epiphanes multi-marine primer, and of course it needed a second coat. So I think after this coat, one more coat should be enough, and then it's ready for a top coat. Moving to the interior of the wheelhouse, I needed to remove a rotten frame. The dry rot here had totally decimated this frame. It had turned to like a clay or soil-like texture. I removed it all, I cut it all out, and right down to the bilge, below the waterline, and I applied distilled white vinegar to the hull interior, to the walls of the double diagonal mahogany. And that was to kill any residual mold or dry rot that might be there, especially the mycelium, the dry rot of the mycelium. And yeah, this stuff is just fantastic. You know, I've used so many different products over the years, and even just to get rid of those fine specks of mold. And the best thing to do is to use distilled white vinegar. I mean, any of those other products, they just don't do the job. And with the distilled white vinegar, it actually gets the roots, or, you know, it gets right down to the base of it and actually soaks into the wood a bit. So it's definitely the right stuff you need to use. And now that I have the boat dry, I've got a dehumidifier running in it. We've got the diesel heater also running sometimes. Mold is not going to be an issue, and especially when I move aboard, we're going to have fans, we're going to have airflow, so that will not be a problem. So I used an angle grinder to remove the brass screws that were sticking in through the hull, and then I just used a punch, and that way I could remove them from the exterior, from the outside. And I also reused the old screw holes, and then some I pre-drilled and, you know, made new holes as well, which you will see here as I secure the new frame in place. I snapped another angle grinding disc, further hammering through the point that it is so important to use and wear your safety equipment with power tools, especially an angle grinder. So some of you might know also that the safety has gone off this angle grinder. I was using this angle grinder in the State. I don't have the actual safety guard, but definitely, you know, do not take it off. Use the safety guard. I'm very cautious of it, and I mean, you know, accidents happen, especially when you get tired towards the end of the evening. You know, you need to be careful. You need to be always alert. So that's something that I am also being aware of myself and always in check about. But it is so important to, you know, have the protection in place. You do not want an accident. Your safety is the most important. So I scribed the curve of the hull onto a pine plank, and then once I cut that with the jigsaw accurately, I could transfer that to my deal plank, my deal that will now be my new replacement frame. So I offered up my frame to where it was going to be secured on the interior, and then I made sure to scribe or mark each side of that frame. That way, when I remove the frame, I can pre-drill all my holes. So I know they're like pilot holes, so that on the exterior, I can drill back in from the outside. I secured my frame in place, and I propped it in place, and then that allowed me to pre-drill on the exterior, from the exterior, and I was then pre-drilling basically into the plank itself for the brass screws, for the right size screws. Although this became a little bit of a challenge where I couldn't get the drill below the actual floorboards on the interior, so I had to kind of eyeball this from the outside. So just once I stayed in line with my existing screws on the exterior of the hull, I knew that I just had to basically go directly down from those and I would be on my mark. So I also countersunk for all the heads of the screws, and then once I secured all the brass screws in place through the hull and into the frame, I made sure to apply some thickened epoxy with low density filler, and it creates this brown texture, as you can see. This is with the West Systems epoxy, and I could fair it nicely and fill all those screw holes. So I'm cutting a deck support, and this will go 90 degrees off from the frame that's already secured in place. This is just going to further support the deck, as the old one was rotten here. And again, this is much stronger, much thicker than the actual diameter of the other supports, and there's no harm in doing that. You know, this boat was made with light material. She weighs only 4 tons, which is unbelievable for a boat of 40 foot. Yeah, so there's no harm in going with the extra supports. And again, I'm just using deal here just to get the job done quick. But again, it's not sacrificing structural integrity. I mean, this is strong, and of course it would be even stronger using oak. But right now I'm not sourcing oak, so I'm just going to go with what I have at hand, and yeah, it will just be as good as what I need. There's no harm in using deal, in my opinion here, and I've sealed everything using the epoxy as well, making sure no face is left unsealed and secured with epoxy. So it's going to be very strong, in my opinion, and it is already. I mean, walking over the deck, there's no movement where there was before with the rotten frame, of course. And it's certainly, I'm using supports here that are thicker. The diameter is much bigger than what you would see with those old original supports. But again, the boat is 40 foot long, and it only weighed 4 tons. So obviously they were going to keep the boat as light and agile as possible. It's incredible. A boat of 40 foot to be 4 tons is mind blowing. Just an incredible feat of engineering in its time. So I'm going an extra bit further and using 3/4 inch plywood and making supports, deck supports using these. And I'll apply 2 here. Normally we would just use 1, but seeing as I have some extra, I'm going to use 2 here. And they're going to be on either side of the frame and deck support. And it's just going to add a nice bit of extra support to the deck, prevent any movement. Going forward, the decks are going to be all fiberglassed, as I've mentioned previously. So I just want to make sure there's no movement there, so that there can be no movement in the actual planks, and in return cause gaps or cracking in the fiberglass and epoxy that would be applied. So once I've dry fitted the ply deck supports in place, I just temporarily secured them using tech screws, and I absolutely despise tech screws with a vengeance. And I'm sure a lot of you out there watching are going to be the same, boat owners and carpenters alike. There's nothing worse than knowing the effects of non-stainless, anything like steel, non-stainless tech screws. If you're not using bronze, brass, or silicon bronze, or stainless steel, just to think about iron sickness on a boat and how fast that can speed up the process of rot. Delignification, it's no joke. Dry rot and delignification, probably 2 of the worst things a wooden boat owner can witness. But that's what nightmares are made of. But yeah, again, it's just temporarily, so you can all sleep soundly knowing that there's no tech screws added to the boat that I've put in. I mean, carpenters in the past have put them in and I've taken them out or had some trouble with them, but yeah, that's how it is. So temporarily having the tech screws in place, it allowed me to pre-drill for my bolts, and then, because that's how we're going to secure these 3/4 inch plywood supports in place through the actual frame and deck support, and it's just going to be superior to screws, and it's going to be super strong. So we're going to make sure there's no movement. So I've been looking everywhere for the ratchet to secure these bolts in place, and then I realized my father had taken it for a job working on a car. So I just had to make do with the tools I had at hand, and it was a little bit awkward and it took longer than it needed to be. I couldn't stop. And I was thinking I'm going to have to scrape off the epoxy and everything and come back to it at a later date. But it worked out well, and I still got them secured in place, and I'm happy with how it has gone. So make sure to check out the previous boat episode where I replaced rotten supports for the windshield in the V-berth. And that was a lot of fun making those, and I used mahogany for those, so that's in keeping with the original design, which is fantastic. I love using mahogany. That's from recycled furniture that was going to be thrown out, so it's great to see something get a second life like that and not see it go to firewood. So I also have a PayPal link in the description below if you feel like further supporting my project there. I can't thank you guys enough for the continued support over the years. It has been absolutely fantastic. And, this is going to be the year where I'm going to be moving aboard. We're going to seal up the exterior, more fiberglass and epoxy work. So that's going to be exciting. We need some good weather for that. So fingers crossed. And yeah, I'm really excited to see the progress I'm making, and the fact that you guys are following along on this, giving me the motivation and commenting as well, what projects that you guys are working on. And it's great to hear what you are working on. And yeah, I'd love to hear what other work you've got in the pipeline. And do leave a comment down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video too, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. As always guys, stay productive and have fun creating. I will see you all in the next episode.